Okay. Would you recommend any apps to support your language learning?
There is one app that I love and I recommend it to everyone, even though it doesn't fit them all, of course. And it's the same one that you mentioned in our interview. It's Anki.
Okay.
This app is is based on the so-called spaced repetition system. So you have like traditional paper flashcards, but it's in your mobile app, and you practice effectively because they only show you based on this special algorithm. I have no idea how it works. Only the cards that are new or difficult. So you don't have to spend hours every day practicing everything that's in your, how do they call it in the app? The deck that's in your deck, but you only practice what's new and what's difficult. So it's an effective way of practicing vocabulary. I used it for Spanish. It was an amazing tool. And I always recommend to my clients who learn Czech to work with complete phrases or expressions or sentences. So not to learn isolated words, but always words in context. So instead of learning the weekend, learning during the weekend or weekendu, so that they also automatically learn the endings, the grammar, natural expressions. Everything is in one package. You don't really divide grammar and vocabulary. Everything is there. And if you learn it by heart, you can then just take it out of your brain and use it like this when you speak.
Spaced repetition really seems to be highly effective, and it's not so intimidating, I would say, because back in the day I used to write down all the vocabulary in the cards, and then you had like huge decks and you would see them like, oh, maybe tomorrow. And here you just have the app, and there you have, I don't know, 20 words of phrases today. Okay, I can do that. That works. And you have your phone most of the time. Most people do, at least those that have a smartphone, which would be most people by now, at least in the Czech Republic and in Germany. And then, yeah, for me, that also works pretty well.
As you mentioned in our previous interview, that you use these like little breaks or little times during your day. You have 5 minutes here, you can take out your phone and you can practice. And I think that's the key, like finding your ways of doing it, because I think that very little people can find 30 minutes or 1 hour, 90 minutes to really sit down to focusly study. But if you have your phone with your cards, you can study like in small chunks.
Then you have this constant exposure to the language, and you try to reduce the amount of motivation you need to actually get to the studying. Just put it out, study a little bit, and then move on.
What has been really helpful for me with Spanish and Anki was to use expressions and sentences from my real life conversation. So I wouldn't download random expressions from the internet or random lists of vocabulary made by other people, but I would use what I've heard in conversations with my own friends or in movies, and I would put it in Anki. So then when the card popped up, I would immediately think about my friend, about our conversation that we had. I would imagine her face, I would remember the atmosphere, and then it was much easier for me to remember than if it was just some random code thing created by somebody else. So that's my recommendation for Anki.
So you have emotions and situations linked to that, and you write down by yourself these phrases and sentences. Works better, I would agree, than just downloading a set. I tried that with another app called Quizlet. You have all these decks. I don't think they use spaced repetition, but you can download for the Czechina Express, the workbook that I use, download decks. But the people that created it do it differently than you would, and you didn't go through the process of creating it. So it's very abstract, it's very distant, very, very foreign to you, and that didn't work at all for me. So take the time, I would agree, write down from your own personal life what you need to learn, what you hear people say frequently. So when you're at a bar or anywhere else and there's a discussion you cannot follow, okay, that's fine, but just take some notes, write it down, and then put it in the app, and then you can remember that situation. That works fantastically. I would agree.
Yeah, definitely. It happened to me many times that there was one card that kept popping up and I wasn't able to remember it. And then I thought, I don't need it. I don't want to use this word, and I just deleted it, and it was so liberating, because then again I was this, like, I was the boss of my own learning process, and it felt so great. Like, I was selective, I was only picking stuff that I liked, that I wanted to learn, expressions, vocabulary that I wanted to learn. So that was something also that I found very useful, to narrow down what we learn and not to try to learn everything.